Prophecy does support that Jesus is the Messiah. You might ask, what is a Messiah? And in the Bible, that refers to a person who would come down the corridors of history and be our deliverer. Now that, of course, raises the question, why do we need deliverance and from what? And that takes us to the backstory of Christianity, found in the first 11 chapters of the Bible, where we see that because humanity turned against God, we brought wars, hatred, strife, family dysfunction into this world. But we also see that God crafts the solution. And that solution involves this individual who, as we read through the pages of the Old Testament, becomes more and more clearly defined. We learn that he's somebody Jewish. We learn that he's a descendant of King David. We learn that he has to be born in Bethlehem. We learn that he's going to die on our behalf, rise from the dead. And when we come to the pages of the New Testament, we see all of this fulfilled in the person of Jesus. You know, coming from a Jewish family, my grandparents were of the generation who said there's a Messiah coming, and when he comes, he's going to make wars stop. He's going to bring peace to the world. I was in Israel a few years ago, talking with a young Jewish man on the beach who asked me, why are we at war all around? Why isn't there peace in the world if Jesus is the Messiah? I said, you know, God could snap his fingers and bring peace to the world right now, but if we didn't change on the inside, we'd have the world back the way it is in a very short time. I said, yes, Jesus is the Messiah, but the Messiah came to bring us peace in our hearts, peace with God, and make us into the kind of people that can bring God's peace to the rest of the world. That's what the promise of the Messiah is about throughout the Old Testament, and that's what we see when it reaches its climax in the pages of the New Testament.
When the Jewish scriptures, which the Bible calls the Old Testament, there are several dozen prophecies about the coming of the Messiah, who would be sent by God to redeem Israel and the world. In all of history, only one individual, Jesus of Nazareth, fulfilled these predictions and thus established that he is the Christ, which is a Greek word meaning Messiah. The prophet Isaiah revealed the manner of the Messiah's birth, of a virgin. Micah pinpointed the place of his birth, Bethlehem. Genesis and Jeremiah specified his ancestry, a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, from the tribe of Judah, from the house of David. Daniel pinpointed the time in history when the Messiah would die. The Psalms foretold his betrayal, his accusation by false witnesses, and his manner of death, pierced in the hands and feet, even though crucifixion hadn't even been invented yet, and his rising from the dead. Isaiah 53 alone contains 12 predictions, and Isaiah 9 shows us that the Messiah would be the mighty God. All of this was written hundreds of years before Jesus walked the earth. Jesus' extraordinary fulfillment of these prophecies defies all odds. One mathematician worked with 600 students to estimate the likelihood of any person in history fulfilling just 48 of these prophecies. The number was one chance in a trillion, 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 trillion. That's equal to the number of minuscule atoms in a trillion, 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 billion universes, the size of our universe. Jesus said in Luke 24, everything must be fulfilled that is written about me in the law of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms. And it was, against all odds, only in him. Jesus was predicted in very clear terms to be the coming Messiah and God of Israel and of the whole world, including you and me.